NFL Prediction Show. Today, we are going to break down and pick the AFC Championship game between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Kansas City Chiefs. As always, the Grueling Truth is powered by betting.net. Betting.net is your best bet for finding an online sportsbook or casino that's right for you. Make sure you check them out at betting.net. I am your host, Mike Goodpaster. I want to welcome in my co-host, Joe Spillman. How you doing, Joe?
Well, Mike, the Bengals are about to win their second AFC Championship in a row. I'm doing great, pumped up, about to hit the road, head to Kansas City. Hopefully I don't spend too much time there, though. Hate that place.
It's better than Buffalo.
Yeah, it is better than Buffalo. I'll give you that. Buffalo's terrible.
Anything's better than Buffalo. All right, Chris Jones, if you've seen it. Did you see Chris Jones at the end of his press conference?
When?
Today, like 20 minutes ago.
No,
when I
didn't.
Doing research in my library, I found the quote where at the end of his press conference, he walked off and he said, "I'll see you all at Burrowhead Stadium Sunday."
Yeah, that's where I'm going, Burrowhead.
Shots have been fired. So both teams seem to be writing really big checks that they're going to have to cash. Puts more pressure on both teams, I think. The one thing we've seen with the Cincinnati Bengals is it seems like the bigger the situation, the better they play, except for, of course, the Super Bowl they lost last year. When we look at this game, though, I think the key is going to be whichever team runs the ball better is the team that's going to win the game, Joe.
Oh, that is 100% fact, Mike. And that's really what we saw Cincinnati against Buffalo last week. They were able to establish the run game. If you can get Mixon with another huge game, 100-plus yard game, I think that pretty much cements Cincinnati's road to victory. I think it's going to be a little taller task to get the running game going against Kansas City, or a little bit harder than it was against Buffalo. But you're absolutely right. And Kansas City absolutely has to run the ball this week. They have to, because I don't care either. Everybody's talking about the high ankle sprain for Patrick Mahomes, and obviously it's played up in the national media because that's what they do. And they get a little carried away with stuff. That's why people watch people like us, because we don't get carried away with it. And the simple fact is, either Patrick Mahomes barely tweaked his ankle in last game and he's a giant wimp for limping around, or he's got a high ankle sprain and the Kansas City Chiefs are just lying about it, how well he's doing right now. Of course, there has been videos come out in practice. He doesn't look too bad, but they're not showing him planting and throwing long balls off that leg either. So, I think probably Patrick Mahomes does have a high ankle sprain. I think his mobility is not going to be there. And in order for them to be effective and keep this a game, if they're going to play Patrick Mahomes in a condition where he can't move like he normally does, they're going to have to establish the running game to make this a game, I think.
Well, I think both teams have to, because it's going to be hard to do nothing but pass and win this game, because both teams have good defenses. I do think the Bengals have the better defense. And I think when you match these teams up, I think offensively, I think the Bengals had the better quarterback. I think they're the two best in the game, but Mahomes is going to be a little bit limited either way, which makes the difference on picking Burrow over Mahomes there, even if you think Mahomes is better when they're healthy. At running back, you get Joe Mixon, Samaje Perine against Isaiah Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon. Right there, I think that the Bengals take that, but I do think Pacheco does things in the run game that can really give the Bengals some issues.
No, he does, especially if the Bengals can't set the edge. I think you brought that up during our Pick'em show a couple nights ago, and you're absolutely right. If the Bengals can't set the edge and Pacheco's able to get off tackle, he's going to have some really big gains on Sunday. But I will say one thing you do look at, or at least I look at, is the Bengals have been very effective running the ball within the red zone this year. Kansas City has not. And I think that is going to benefit the Bengals, because Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are going to drive the field against the Bengals. That's going to happen. But if you can trade this game, if you could trade touchdowns for field goals all game long, I think that probably should be the game plan going into this game, is allowing those chunks that are going to happen, and not giving up touchdowns. And I don't think that if Patrick Mahomes can't move as well as he has, and Pacheco can't run up the middle, that really limits them when they get down in the red zone and when they get to the goal line. What do you think?
Yeah, because you get to the 5-yard line, it's hard to run a sweep. And You can still RPO down there with their little trips on the one side, the running back there. That would work. So I still think there's ways here the Chiefs can win this game. I don't think the game's going to be a blowout, but I didn't think last week was either. The other thing is this Samaje Perine, I think a lot of people forget, ran for over 100 yards against Kansas City in the Bengals' last game against the Chiefs.
Yeah, right. Well, and he had that huge touchdown on that wheel route, if you remember, which I thought was just an absolutely incredible run. And Samaje Perine has, for the last 2 years, has been an incredible tool for the Bengals that not a lot of people talk about. When we saw Joe Mixon go out, Samaje stepped in and really, I mean, there was an argument
No, there
when Joe
wasn't.
Mixon.
There was
What?
only an argument for people that are idiots.
Well, that there were people making the argument. You're right, Mike. I didn't make that argument, but there were people making the argument that Samaje Perine should get the starting job, which is absolutely ludicrous. But he is definitely a weapon, and I think that Perine probably starts for 80% of the teams in the NFL as their primary running back. But that's a good 1-2 punch the Bengals have. Perine's a little bit better and third down situations where he's able to pass block or get out into the flat, and he does a really good job with that. And he's kind of sneaky quick. He's kind of sneaky fast. Well, his straight line speed is incredible. So, that is something that has to be accounted for by the Chiefs as well. And last year they didn't account for Perine very well because, like I said, Perine ran that wheel route, that screen, and I think that what was that about a 36-yard touchdown? An
Yeah, that was
incredible
a
run,
touchdown that basically saved their ass. It got them back in the
right?
game. And when you talk about throwing the ball, my concern if I'm Kansas City is this. Last week in a big game, Mahomes has been spreading the ball around. But in a big situation last week, he completed 22 passes, 14 of them to Travis Kelsey. Now, I think the Bengals, with Mike Hilton, some other guys they got, could double team him and take him away. So the question is going to be, can Juju Smith-Schuster, Kadarius Toney, or Marquez Valdez-Scantling do anything to get some of the heat off of Travis Kelsey? Because one of these guys is, for the Chiefs to win, one of these guys is have to going to do some things because that'll free up Kelsey a little bit and maybe change the way the Bengals are playing defense.
Well, and one thing I do want everybody to realize, or one thing that I look at is 12 of those. And I thought Kelsey had 16 receptions, maybe,
It might have been. Hell, I don't know.
but 12 of those came before Patrick Mahomes got hurt. So 12 of them from Patrick Mahomes, I think, came before he got hurt. I could be wrong on that.
Well, I think what it
But,
was is this. I think it was he had 14 receptions from Mahomes and then another two
uh,
from
you,
Henny.
yeah, I think you're right. But one thing you do see when Patrick Mahomes typically throws to Kelsey is Patrick Mahomes' outlet, right? He's his go-to guy when he can't find anybody else, and a lot of times he's the primary receiver as well. But when you look at how Travis Kelsey and Patrick Mahomes play together, Mahomes does all that running around, in the backfield looking for an open man, doesn't have anybody, dumps it to Kelsey, and sometimes that line with Mahomes being able to move, well, Mahomes will be back there looking for somebody to throw to for 6, 7, 8 seconds sometimes, which is crazy. He's not going to be able to do that this week. Not with a high ankle sprain. He's not getting 8 seconds out of his mobility to dump to Kelsey with a high ankle sprain. He's just not going to be able to do it. I think we're gonna see a Patrick Mahomes that is not mobile at all this Sunday, and I think it's going to get him into trouble because I don't think that that's the game that he is comfortable playing.
Well, the thing is this, being in the pocket is what being a quarterback's all about. I'm sure he can do that. If he can't, I would be very disappointed. Well, not really, because I'm a Bengals fan, but it would be disappointing to me that a quarterback that good can't stay in the pocket and throw. When we look at the offensive lines, Orlando Brown, Joe Thuney, Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, Andrew Wiley, I think the Chiefs are a top 5, at worst, top 10 offensive line. The Bengals, Jackson Carman, Cordell Volson, Ted Karras, Max Sharping, Hakeem Adeniji is a huge worry here because you got George Karofoulos, who was a first-year player who has played much better in the playoffs. You got Chris Jones in the middle, who has 0 playoff sacks in his history. My issue when I look at the offensive line is not even the tackles. My issue is Max Sharping is probably going to be the guy that has to block Chris Jones. And I really think out of the 5 guys here, Sharping is the weakest link.
Yeah, well, He didn't play, besides a couple false starts, and I think the one of the sacks in Buffalo was on Sharping, but he didn't play bad last week. I didn't
Yeah, but
think.
he's not playing Buffalo's
I,
defensive line.
and you're right. I mean, he's just going to have to play his game. I mean, every team's going to have holes, especially when you're down 3 offensive linemen. And if that is a hole that the Bengals have, that's a hole that they're going to have. But one thing Joe Burrow does really well is their linemen have gotten good at letting the defensive pass rush, the defensive line, run themselves out of the play. And he climbs the pocket really well. And that opens a lot of things up for him. We're starting to see Joe Burrow, which I hate when he does it. And every time he does it, I hold my breath, but he'll climb that pocket, doesn't see anything, and he's good for 8 to 10 yards and normally picks up the first down that way. I don't want to see that too much, not in the AFC Championship game. I'd rather him complete passes.
Well, last year they won the game with his feet. He picked up 3 or 4 first downs in the second half.
I hate it when he does it because
I don't. He slides.
Not when he runs out of bounds. He's taking 2 hits running out of bounds.
Well,
but
it's football, Joe.
At the end of the day, I think they're just going to have to play their game. I think Sharping built enough confidence last week that at least he goes into this game believing that he can play and believing that he can keep up and do his job. And I think that's half the battle when it comes to football anyway.
All right, so when you look at betting this game, the line's been all over the place. Kansas City, most places right now, is favored by a point. I'm going to ask you to do something that I know you probably can't do, but act like you're not a Bengals fan. Look at this game objectively and tell me how you would bet it.
I would take Cincinnati. I think when you look at this line, I mean, normally home teams, and I think it's probably even edged a little bit higher during the playoffs, with playoff home game, AFC Championship game at home. Kansas City's automatically getting 3 points for just playing a home game. It's probably edged a little bit higher than that, which really you take away the home field advantage in this, then you're looking at Cincinnati at -2. I don't think, even if this game comes down to a field goal, you're obviously tied up. That's a 3-point win. I would take Cincinnati. I mean, they're 1 point advantage, which is essentially a pick 'em. I think Cincinnati wins the game, and I think it really comes down to more of a money line thing. Who do you think's going to win the game?
Yeah.
Because this is
at one point, it pretty much is.
Right. Yeah. Who do you think's going to win the game? And that's who you should bet. Now, when you look at the over under of 47.5,
that's a tough one.
That is a tough one because this game, if Patrick Mahomes, if he has me deceived and he's got the rest of the world deceived,
it's going to be like a 27-24 game, which is borderline over. But now, if he's a little bit off, the game could turn into 24-20, and then you're under.
Right. Or 27-17.
So I can tell you this: the NFC Championship game, I would take the under all day. In this game, I would stay away from the over/under.
I think that's because this you're absolutely right. It really could go either way. I think if Patrick Mahomes is off, and I think if Henny has to enter the game, I think you're definitely looking at the under. If Patrick Mahomes isn't hurt and Joe Burrow's on, and Patrick Mahomes is on, this could be the over in this game could be a 60-point over. So I wouldn't bet that. I mean, I don't.
Well, I really think this. I think it's hard for me to see a shootout of like 38-35, just because both teams' defenses I don't think are that bad, and I think that the weakness for both teams' defenses, I think the Bengals' weakness is containing the edge run. I think the issue with the Chiefs is stopping the run up the middle, because Chris Jones, really good football player, but he's a pass rusher. He's not really a run stopper. So I think the way these two teams would play to be most successful would lend this to be kind of like the Buffalo game, maybe not as one-sided because Mahomes is better than Allen, even if he's hurt, I think, in a situation like this. But I think you're going to have long 7-8 minute drives. And as you said, the game's decided on who gets held to field goals and who gets touchdowns.
Right. And having said that, if you're one that does the FanDuel lineups, which I know a lot of people like to play that game, if you're going to take a kicker in this game, or this weekend, I would take the Chiefs kicker, because I think the Chiefs are going to have to settle for a whole lot of field goals. Cincinnati's got one of the best red zone, if not the best red zone defense in all of football. I think Kansas City scores points in this game, but I think that comes off the leg of their kicker, and I think he's going to put up some big numbers, 9-12. I think I foresee a game where Kansas City settles for 4 field goals throughout this game. So, really, Cincinnati, what's the average points that they've given up this year? I think one of the highest games in
It's under
point
20.
total, 20 points, under 20. I don't see, with an unhealthy Patrick Mahomes, I don't see Kansas City getting to 20 points. With a healthy Patrick Mahomes, you're looking. I think the Bengals keep them to the 24 or under anyway. So, and I think that's the goal that Cincinnati has to be at is they have to get to obviously over 24. So, and having said that, healthy Patrick Mahomes at 24, I think the Bengals have 27. Then you could bet the over if that's your logic, but I wouldn't bet it because we don't know where Patrick Mahomes is at right now.
Yeah, there's I mean, it makes it really rough betting the game too.
Right.
I think. But I do think the Bengals, top to bottom, are a slightly better team. So we'll see if that plays out. I want to remind you guys, if you want to bet on this game, click on the link in the description down below in the video if you're watching on YouTube, to go to Betfred and make sure you sign up there. They got some great bonuses for first-time gamblers or first-time somebody's been on their site. Make sure you check them out. And don't forget to check out your top sportsbook comparison site, betting.net, which offers extensive reviews on the best sports books out there. You can follow us on Twitter at Grueling Truth. And Joe?
Yeah.
You got anything to wrap us up with?
No, I think maybe Sunday, if I have time, I will be doing a lineup for championship weekend on FanDuel. Before I head over to Burrowhead Stadium, I might jump on here and share out my lineup to everybody just to get them out, or let everybody know what I'm thinking and the reason why I'm picking players over the 4 teams. So if you guys want to see that, I think I'm going to try to do that Sunday morning around 9:00. So.
All right, guys. So make sure you check that out. Remember, go check out Betfred. And also, if you like social casinos, make sure you sign up with stake.us and use our exclusive promo code at TGT Social to secure your unique 5% rake back bonus. But for now, for Joe Spillman, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been watching and listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.